The 1922 election came about following the ousting of Lloyd George as Prime Minister at a meeting of Conservative MPs at the Carlton Club on the 19th of October 1922. Lloyd George had become Prime Minister in December 1916, following a crisis of confidence in Asquith's handling of the war as leader of a coalition government. This caused a split in the Liberal Party between those who remained loyal to Asquith and those who sided with Lloyd George, which persisted after the war, with Asquith leading the Liberal Party into the 1918 election against a Conservative National Liberal coalition. Lloyd George's coalition decisively won the 1918 election, but the coalition government he led was dominated by Conservative MPs, which meant that when the Cabinet voted for an election in October 1922, there was a question for Conservative MPs about whether they should fight the election as a coalition led by Lloyd George, or whether they should break away and fight the election as an independent Conservative party. The coalition between the National Liberals and the Conservative Party had been kept together by the view, held by Austen Chamberlain and many members of the Cabinet, that only a united front could defeat the growing threat posed by socialism, as evidenced by the growing strength of the trade union movement and the Labour Party, and by the successful Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. But looking back, the decision to split away seems like the obvious political move, as the Conservative Party would go into the 1922 election facing a divided Liberal Party and a Labour Party that was an increasingly powerful force in electoral politics, but which was not yet strong enough to challenge the dominance of the Conservative Party. Indeed, this was the view reached by Carlton Club members, who passed a motion which read, quote, that this meeting of Conservative members of the House of Commons declares its opinion that the Conservative Party, whilst willing to cooperate with coalition Liberals, fights the election as an independent party with its own leader and its own programme. After ousting Lloyd George, Austen Chamberlain was replaced as the leader of the Conservative Party by Andrew Bonar Law, a man whose health was failing but who had significant standing within the Conservative Party, having served as leader of the opposition between 1911 and 1915. The Conservative pitch to the electorate was an odd one in that they promised to do very little. Indeed, in his election address, Bonar Law said the following, quote, the crying need of the nation at this moment, a need which in my judgment far exceeds any other, is that we should have tranquility and stability both at home and abroad, so that free scope should be given to the initiative and enterprise of our citizens. For it is in that way, far more than by any action of the government, that we can hope to recover from the economic and social results of the war. There are many measures of legislative and administrative importance which in themselves would be desirable, but I do not feel that they can, at this moment, claim precedence over the nation's first need, which is, in every walk of life, to get on with its work with the minimum of interference at home and of disturbance abroad. Meanwhile, the Liberal Manifesto began by stridently attacking both sides of the coalition government, serving to emphasise the depth of the split in the Liberal Party. Quote, for 4 years, the alliance between Mr. Lloyd George and the Conservative Party has dominated the affairs of the nation. This combination has broken up in general confusion and discredit, leaving behind it an unexampled record of extravagance and failure. It must be remembered that both wings of the coalition are responsible for its misdeeds, and neither can escape its share of public condemnation. As might be expected, the most distinctive manifesto was put forward by the Labour Party, led by the moderate J.R. Clines, which proposed a land value tax, an increase in death duties, a capital levy, the nationalisation of mining and railways, a reduction in income tax for the poorest, and maintenance or work for the unemployed. This led the Times to warn, quote, socialism, as represented by such items in the Labour policy as the capital levy and nationalisation of mines and railways, is the only clear-cut issue. What the electors who reject socialism are called on to do is choose the men and the parties best fitted to pursue and make a success of a more or less common policy. In the end, the Conservative Party won a convincing majority of 73 seats, with a vote share of 38.5%. Hardly a ringing endorsement, but they benefited from an opposition that was divided. Meanwhile, the continuing split in the Liberal Party helped Labour to solidify its position as the official opposition, winning 142 seats on 29.7% of the vote, which marked the first time Labour had surpassed the combined strength of the divided Liberal Party, which won 115 seats between them. But Bonar Law's government was not to last long, as throat cancer rendered him unable to speak and then took his life, making him the shortest-serving Prime Minister of the 20th century. Indeed, he is often referred to as the unknown Prime Minister because of his short tenure and due to the fact that he falls between two political titans in the shape of Lloyd George and Stanley Baldwin. The ascendancy of Stanley Baldwin would lead to a period of Conservative electoral dominance that has persisted ever since, with the Liberal Party relegated to third-party status, while the Labour Party periodically interrupts spells of Conservative dominance.